everyone. Today we'll be ranking all of the Big Nate New Year's comics so far. Now here's some rules. Different sets of comics will count. Nate Wright's comics will count. Sundays will only count if they mention New Year's, and they could be creative and interesting. Now, without further ado, let's get started. 44, 1995 Sunday. Starting with the lamest one. This one is very boring, and it's probably not one of the most interesting comics, like New Year's comics I've ever seen in Big Nate. 43, 2017. This is basically just a rerun. Now, the reason why I put this up a little bit higher is because it sometimes can be a little interesting, but that's only for the old comic. This is just a rerun, so it doesn't make anything special. 42, December 1995. So this one is basically just Nate and Ellen. That's fine by its own, but the reason why I put this very low, very low on the list, is because of one stupid reason. Nate and his friends go back to school after a week? Like, seriously? It's supposed to be 2 weeks. That really ruins the comic flow, and I really hated that. 41, 1994. Again, they go back to school, which is a very big issue. Now, the reason why I put this up a little bit higher is not just because it's all about Nate, wanted to save, someone's life or something like that, but it also includes Social Studies Jeopardy. But even then, this is just very boring. 40, 2000. While this doesn't mention New Year's, it's still just basically a regular comic. But with that said, it's basically just like the other classic comics, so this makes the comic very not valuable. 39, 2015 to 2016. So basically, after Nate got spit out, Nate got hit with a snowball, and they tried to figure it out, only to figure out it was Midri, and I don't know how you say it, but even then, I feel like this is probably, the boringest comic idea you can ever think of. 38, 1998 comic. So, it's all about years. What can possibly go wrong? And okay, I'll admit it, when you go to Go Comics, it gives, comics from years late, in 1999, and whichever never came out. But even then, I feel like this is just not the interesting idea you can think of, and it's not my favorite. 37, 2000 Sunday. While this does mention New Year's, all it is about Ellen. Now, at first that might be interesting, but it's just, a face, freshen up thing. Freshen up. And it's probably just, I'm definitely gonna admit it, this is probably very boring. 36, 2005. Now, this has a compilation of things, but there's one thing that you probably know that ruins everything. School. Does the author not know that it's only 2 weeks? It's basically 2 weeks, not 1 week? Seriously, that really ruins, again, the comic flow. But I only put it higher because it has at least the glue stick part, which is really funny. 35, 2006. So not only does it have Spitzy getting, crumbling like Nate, but it also has, Nate complaining to Wink. And while that's an interesting idea, I feel like it's not really, nowadays, I don't think it's aged that well. So that's why I put it low. 34, January 1995. So this is a Sunday comic that, mentions New Year's. And this is sometimes can be enjoyable. But, nowadays, I feel like it's not really aged that well. This Sunday, I don't think has been, aged well these days. 33, 1992. So Nate and Ellen go into the snow, and have some fun. And, this was a very interesting idea at the beginning, but, nowadays, I feel like, this is just, a very old idea. So if you're trying to think of an original idea, don't go with this one. 32, 1991 to 1992. This is the very first time they did something New Year's related thing. And this is the very first one. Nowadays, the newer, Big Nate comics, always do the New Year's game. But this was the very first one, and it can't. I don't know if it's aged that well, and that's why I put it on the lowest list because there's other ones that are a lot better than this one, but this was the very first one to introduce doing New Year's stuff. 31, 2010. Good grief, Nate! Can you stop talking about Mrs. Godfrey? Yeah, this is basically Nate talking about Mrs. Godfrey, which really annoys Teddy so much. And come on, you should have think of Lincoln Purse. You could have came up with another better idea. This is not one of your good ideas, but better ideas. 30, 2011. Speaking of not so great ideas, this is one of the not so great ideas. While the idea of Spitzy knitting sweaters is actually pretty interesting, I feel like it's not really, fleshed out well. 29, 2007 to 2008 has a very interesting idea, but it's not really fleshed out well, and I don't think it's very, interesting. But the only reason I put it up higher is because it is kinda a little aged well. 28, 2008. This one is focused more on the book effects. While that's interesting, it's the same plot. In fact, they even take the book and that messes around with him. It's just the same plot. It doesn't really mention, New Year's that much. 27, 2009 to 2010. What's very interesting about this one is that this arc starts on a Sunday. Very interesting. Like, rarely anything, arcs start on a Sunday. Even then, I mean, the idea is very interesting. It's all about them doing money just after when they shovel, for the neighbors. But even then, so it's an okay comic strip arc. 26, 2016. Now we're getting into the game stuff, starting with the worst one, 2016. This is a very bland idea, and while they added in DD to try the DT, I don't know how you say it, to try the, the tradition. It's very just the same idea, and nothing new is added here, to make things interesting. 25, 2018 to 2019. Now, this has an interesting idea where Nate's Monopoly game, their old Monopoly game, is gone, and they have to find one, and they find Here Kitty Kitty. While it's an interesting idea, you could have came up with something a little bit more original with, an even worse plot where they couldn't find anything and they just had to play charades at the last comic. I just wanted to give you an idea. It's just not the interesting comic of the bunch. 24, 2003 to 2004. Now this is basically like the other ones, and there is one little teeny tiny issue that kind of ruins it. Arguing. And, I know there's a lot of arguing, but, come on, couldn't they get together? Okay, maybe they were upset of Nate and stuff, but I feel like it kind of ruined the comic flow. Even then, it was a pretty new idea at that time. 23, 2004 to 2005. Now we're getting into the average one. This is the very first average one I'm going to put on the list. I put this one on the lowest side, because there's a little arguing in there, but not much, which is actually pretty good. And it actually improves the comic flow a little, and it's actually a very interesting comic arc. 22, 2002 to 2003. Now this has Martin playing Monopoly, and while he does talk too much about Monopoly and some other things, it isn't actually a very interesting idea. Like last year, which is 2001 to 2002, which we'll get to later, included Arthur. And again, they're having another guest, which is Martin. Nice. 21, 2010 to 2011. It's basically every year, but the color has been improving, and it has more arguing and stuff. And this time I actually agree with the arguing. It actually is a very interesting idea to add in arguing in the comics because it makes everyone laugh. 2020 to 2021. The current New Year's comic. And there's one reason why I put it up higher than the other ones. Batman. Or Bruce Wayne. Okay, I'll admit it's just a customer. But it's so cool. And while it doesn't mention New Year's, it's an epic story arc. And it's really funny. And I feel like maybe over the years, it will definitely age well. Because I love this comic. 2012 to 2013. Again, the same plot. But the color is improving. And plus, this focuses on Nate's cheating skills, which is actually very interesting because in the other comics, well, they figured out his cheating skills. They didn't mention it that much because there was a lot of arguing stuff. But focusing on cheating is actually pretty interesting. I like it. 18, 2001 to 2002. Now, this was the first time Arthur joined their little game, as Nate likes to call it. And this was one of the very interesting ones because not only was Arthur in it, but it also had more variety and stuff and had a little bit more depth, and it was epic and awesome. 17, January 1997. Well, this was a one comic strip, strip of a comic. This is one of the most funniest ones, and it is probably one of the ones that probably laughs me the most. And it's so funny, and it was really funny. 16, 1996 to 1997. This was the first New Year's game strip thing in a long time, and the first one to include Teddy. And this is probably one of the most. This was the first time that they had it together. It has epic laughter, and it is probably one of the most creative. 15, December 1997. Both 1996 to 1997 and December 1997 can be interchanged. I put this up a little bit higher because it is a little bit more creative. 14, 2000 comic, including the Snubbles family. It is memorable, creative, and has definitely aged well because of its art style and its writing. 13, 1999 comic. Yet again, another comic. This one's a lot better because it's more interesting, it's more memorable, and is a little bit more creative. 12, 2008 to 2009. Now, you might be wondering yourself, why am I putting this one higher? Because even though Uncle Ted ruins the game, it is still pretty funny and is probably memorable. It's definitely memorable, and it's definitely aged well ever since then. 11, 2019 to 2020. Now, the things we saw was Nate's old Monopoly game, but this time Francis got a new one, and it's completely different, which brings in more variety and more creativity. And probably later it will definitely be aged well because as new variety, like I said already. 10, 1992 to 1993. Now, even though they're back in school, I won't complain because they get invited to an epic party. Now, even though it's all about romantic stuff, it is definitely one of the more interesting ones because instead of New Year's game the last one we already mentioned a while ago, they decided to do something new, which I really like because it adds in even more variety. 9, 1993 to 1994. Well, there's other random things in this. I'm kind of after Christmas stuff. I'm going to focus on the spin the bottle part because this is actually a very neat idea, and I kind of wish nowadays that the author focused back onto this because this was a very neat idea back in those days. 8 to 2014 to 2015. Now, this one talks about after-school stuff, and it focuses on Gina's dog, which makes Nate upset. And during the basketball game, he plays mad, and he was on fire. And was definitely one of the more interesting ideas for for a comic, and I absolutely loved it. 7, 2013 to 2014. Probably one of the best ones to have a guest appearance, which is Chad. Now, Chad has never played Monopoly, so Nate has to teach him. And even then, this was probably one of the greatest guest appearances, and probably one of the best New Year's comics because it's interesting and has depth. 6, 2021 to 2022. Okay, I'll admit it, I don't have really anything because he only just posted one of them. But so far it's actually pretty interesting. I think this will be one of the most creative because even though it goes back to its original idea, it's definitely a good one so far. Now on 5, I'm gonna say here I messed up because I got the ranking wrong. So let's just move on. 4. Well, this is a mistake. Moving on. 3. Okay, after this it will be done. 3. Yeah, we're done. 2, 1999 to 2000. Phew, we're done with those shenanigans. This one's probably one of my most favorite because it is interesting and talks about decade stuff. And And it's all about the new millennium, which is probably very awesome. And 1998 to 1999. This has the best guest appearance, but not one, but two guest appearances. This was the very first time they had guest appearance. It has definitely big creativity. It's very interesting and has a lot of depth. And that is why it's my favorite New Year's comic. So listen, sorry if the rankings had no comics. My ranking was kind of jumbled up, so sorry about that. But yeah, there was a lot of them, and I had to split them up. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.